marginal productivity theory of factor pricing in the context of perfectly competitive markets is what we are going to discuss in this particular lecture. And here what we have to keep in mind is that the basic principles of pricing will apply to the pricing of factor services as well. But a few things need to be reiterated and emphasized. Here in the context of factor pricing, what we have to understand is that the demand for factor services is coming from the firms and the supply of factor services is coming from the households. Now this is the opposite of what we did in the context of the demand for a commodity, because there the demand was coming from the households and the supply was coming from the firms. Also, we need to understand as to the nature of demand for and the supply of factor services. Demand for a commodity is a direct demand because it directly satisfies some of our wants. But in contrast, the demand for a factor service is a derived demand, is not a direct demand. A factor service is demanded for the demand for what it produces. So basically we say that the demand for a factor service is a derived demand, and also we have to keep in mind the fact that output cannot happen with the help of just one factor input. So the demand for a factor service is also a joint demand. Now what is the implication when we say that the demand for a factor service is a derived demand? Demand for a factor service is a derived demand in the sense that it is derived from the productivity of the factor. And when we talk about the word productivity, here we need to clearly understand that this is directly based on what you have studied in the portion on law of variable proportions and the earlier chapter where we talked about production. And while studying laws of production, the output was looked at in terms of its physical productivity. But when the factor has to be paid, the factor has to be paid not in terms of its physical output, but has to be paid in terms of rupees, in terms of its money equivalent. So basically what we do is that when we want to find out the contribution of a factor, we are saying that the demand has to be based on what the factor contributes. And when we want to measure the contribution of the factor, the contribution has to be measured in terms of the money equivalent of what the factor has produced. So when we talked about the laws of production, we talked about terms like average product and we talked about marginal product. Now there the word product was expressed in terms of physical units, liters, meters, etc., etc.
After studying this module, you shall be able to learn the concepts of factor prices, know how to derive demand and supply of factor in perfectly competitive product as well as factor market, and know how to determine factor prices in competitive market framework. According to the traditional economic theory, by factor inputs of production, we mean broadly land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. The prices of these factors are called rent, wage, interest, and profit respectively, and the determination of each of these factor prices are discussed under a separate body of theory. In order to determine these factor prices, we need to understand the fact that product market and factor markets are interdependent. That is, if anything happens in the product market, for example, an increase in product price, it will have an impact on the factor market and vice versa. Among the four factors, labor is considered as a variable factor and the rest of the others are known as fixed factors, which can be varied in the long run. We begin our analysis in this module with the determination of the price of the variable factor, that is, labor. Like product price, the determination of equilibrium price of labor follows the basic rules of demand and supply. However, the derivation of demand and supply of this labor input differs from that of output. Output demands are derived from consumers' preferences, and the supply of outputs is derived from the profit maximization of firms, while the demand for labor input is derived from the output market. We will first examine the determination wage in the competitive market framework. Subsequently, we will incorporate the assumption of market imperfection in our analysis. In order to determine the price of labor, that is wage, we have to explain the so-called marginal productivity theory of distribution. This theory postulates that when perfect competition prevails in product and factor markets, factors, labor inputs, are paid according to the value of their marginal product. The equilibrium factor price, wage, is determined by its market demand and supply schedules. The market demand and supply schedules are derived by aggregating individual demands for labor and supplies of labor. Now we will start with the demand curve for labor in perfectly competitive market. In this, we will examine demand for labor in two different situations. One, when labor is only variable factor of production, and two, when there are several variable factors. The demand of a firm for a single variable factor. In this context, we have to adopt some assumptions to derive the labor demand curve. They are 1. Product market is perfectly competitive and only one good Y is produced in that market. 2. The goal of the producer is to maximize profit. 3. Labor is the sole variable factor whose market is perfectly competitive. And 4. Production technology is constant.
Now here, when we talk about the factor pricing part, we express productivity not in terms of physical units, but in terms of its money equivalent. So what we tend to do is we convert the contribution of labor in terms of its marginal product into its money equivalent. And when we do that, when we transform the marginal physical product into its money equivalent, there are two different measures available for that. We can do so by multiplying the marginal physical product by its MR, or we can do so by multiplying it by its AR. Now, if we assume perfect competition in the product market, then we know that the firm is a price taker and therefore its AR equals its MR. And hence, the VMP, that is MPP into AR, is equal to the MPP into MR. So, MPP into AR, which is VMP, is equal to MPP into MR, which is its MRP. So, if we assume perfect competition in the product market, then MPP will be equal to the VMP. But if we do not make the assumption of perfect competition in the product market, then and if we introduce imperfection in the product market, then we'll find that AR will be greater than the MR. In other words, if the firm is a monopoly, is a monopolist in the product market, then its AR would be higher than the MR, and as a result of that, the VMP would be greater than its MRP. Now, therefore, we are saying that the demand for a factor will depend upon its contribution, and the contribution is to be measured in terms of its VMP MRP.
Since labor market is perfectly competitive, the wage W bar is given for all firms. This implies that at the given market wage rate, the firm can hire any amount of labor that it wants. Therefore, the supply curve of individual labor will be perfectly elastic and parallel to horizontal axis at W bar as shown here. For a given technology, the production function follows the so-called law of diminishing return to factor as shown here. The slope of the production function reflects the marginal productivity of labor, MPL, which decreases as we employ more and more labor inputs in the production process. If we multiply the given product price, PY bar, with the MPL at each level of employment, we obtain the value of marginal product curve as shown here. Since the producer is a profit maximizer, he will employ labor until the total revenue generated exceeds the total cost and the gap between them is highest. That is, a producer will hire a labor up to the point at which marginal revenue equals to the marginal cost of production. Let us now derive the profit maximization with respect to labor. For this, consider a production function y as a function of labor and capital. Here we assume that capital is given The total cost of production consists of the total variable cost and fixed cost F. That is, total cost TC is the summation of W bar into L, that is variable cost, and fixed cost denoted by F. The total revenue of the firm is P bar Y multiplied by output. Hence, the profit function can be written as pi is equal to TR minus TC. Now we will substitute the value of TR and TC in the profit function. We get pi is equal to P bar Y into Y as a function of L and K bar minus W bar into L plus F. We will take the first order derivative of this profit function and we get delta pi by delta L is equal to P bar Y into delta Y by delta L minus W bar. In order to satisfy the first order condition of profit maximization, we set the first order derivative equal to 0. Hence, P bar Y into dy by dL is equal to W bar, where P bar Y into dy by dL is the value of marginal product of labor, VMPL, and W bar is the marginal cost of labor. That is, W bar is equal to P bar Y into MPL, or W is equal to VMPL. Note that under perfect competition, since P bar Y is equal to marginal revenue, the value of marginal productivity of labor, VMPL, and the marginal revenue productivity of MRPL are identical. The marginal condition of profit maximization is shown at point E in the figure. We obtain the profit maximizing level of labor L star from the equilibrium condition. To the left of L star, W bar is less than VMPL, hence the producer has a scope to increase profit by hiring more workers. By contrast, to the right of L star, the W bar is greater than VMPL and the entrepreneur's profit will be reduced. Therefore, profit will be maximized when W bar is equal to VMPL at L star level of employment.
Thus, we can say that a profit maximizing firm will hire units of variable factor input until the point is reached at which the value of marginal product of the input is exactly equal to its price. For a given wage rate or supply of labor, the competitive firm determines the quantity of labor demand by equating the VMPL to the wage rate. When the wage rate is OW1, the firm will hire OL1 units of labor to equate the VMPL to the given wage rate at point E1. Similarly, if the wage rate falls to OW2, the firm will employ OL2 units of labor at the new equilibrium point.
In case of more than one variable factor such as capital, in the long run, capital will also vary along with labor. The demand curve for labor will no longer be the simple VMPL curve. This is because when several factors are employed in the production simultaneously, a change in the price of one factor can alter the demand for the other factor, and this in turn shifts the marginal productivity curve of the factor whose price is changed initially.
Let us now analyze the substitution effect, output effect, and profit maximizing effect with the help of a diagram. Assume that the firm produces output Y1 by using capital K1 and labor L1 when factor prices are R1 and W1 respectively. In the diagram, this is shown by the equality of the slope of the isoquant Y1 and the isocost line AB at point E1. Suppose that wage rate declines from initial rate W1 to W1 dash. This will rotate out the isocost line from AB to AC by pivoting around the point A, and the firm will produce more output Y2 at the level of capital and labor K2 and L2 respectively. This is shown by the new equilibrium point E2 in the figure. The journey from initial equilibrium point E1 to E2 can be divided into two effects, substitution effect and output effect. In order to explain these two effects more explicitly, we draw a new isocost line DF, which is parallel to AC and also tangential to the initial isoquant Y1, so that it shows the new factor price ratio and at the same time maintain initial level of production. The new isocost line DF is tangential to the isoquant Y1 at E1 dash. The movement from E1 to E1 dash happens due to the substitution effect. This implies that when wage rate falls, the firm substitutes more labor in place of relatively costlier capital. The firm increases the level of employment from OL1 to OL1 dash. Next, the movement from E1 dash to E2 is explained by output effect. However, the story does not end here. There is another prominent effect, that is profit maximizing effect, arising as the firm increases its expenditure in order to maximize profit. More intuitively, when the wage rate falls, the marginal cost of production declines. In the figure, it is shown by the downward shift of marginal cost curve MC1 to MC2 for a given output price PY bar. The shaded rectangle FY1, Y2G is the additional expenditure made by the firm to attain the profit maximizing level output Y3. This additional expenditure due to profit maximization is shown by the parallel upward shift of the isocost line AC to A-C'. The final equilibrium point.
Now we will show how these three effects help us derive the labor demand curve. The substitution effect leads to a reduction in marginal productivity of labor as it substitutes more workers in place of capital. The output effect and profit maximizing effect both have a positive impact on the marginal productivity labor. This is because the employment of both the factor inputs capital and labor are raised by these two effects.
In the figure, this is shown by the rightward shift of the VMPL curve when wage rate declines from W to W dash and to W double dash for a given level of PY bar. For different wage rates, we have corresponding level of employments by equating the wage lines with the separate VMPL curves. Suppose for three different wage rates W, W dash and W double dash, we get three different equilibrium points E1, E2 and E3 on the three separate VMPL curves. Thus,
Unlike the market demand for output, the market demand for factors like labor is not the simple horizontal summation of the demand curves of individual firms. This happens due to the fact that when the price of input, say wage, declines, it is not only for a single firm who wants to hire more labor, but all other firms who also seek to employ more workers. This resulting increase in employment of labor will lead to an expansion of aggregate output. Thus, the market supply curve of output will be shifted to the right, and consequently the price of output will fall. This reduction of output price will depress the value of marginal productivity of labor at all levels of employment and also for all individual firms.
we can understand individual as well as market demand with the help of a diagram. The straight line DL in figure A shows the individual firm's demand curve for labor. Suppose at the wage rate W1, the firm is at point E1 and hires L1 units of labor. Assume that wage rate falls to W2. The firm moves from point E1 to E dash along the DL curve and increases its employment of labor from L1 to L dash units. Since all other firms behave in the same manner, the market supply of output increases and product price PY falls. This will result in a downward shift of VMPL curve or DL curve to the left. The firm is now at point E2 on the new demand curve for labor DL dash and hires OL2 units of labor at wage rate W2 in figure. Next, we see what happens in the market demand curve for labor, which is shown in the second panel of the figure. At the initial wage rate W1, aggregating all individual firms' demand for labor, we get a point E on the market demand curve for labor DL and corresponding OL1 units of aggregate.
Now we will derive the market supply curve of variable factor in order to determine the equilibrium price of the variable factor. The nature and characteristics of the supply curve of variable factors like raw materials and various intermediate goods are the same as the supply curve of any commodity, while the supply curve of the variable factor like labor is derived by following somewhat different principles. The decision to supply labor depends on a worker's choice between the amount of work effort and the time he will spend for leisure with the changes in wage rate. Therefore, we can derive the supply of labor by an individual with the help of an indifference curve approach.
In the figure, along the horizontal axis, we measure the hours available for leisure and work over a given period of time, say OT. Along the vertical axis, we measure money income. Say, for instance, if an individual spends the entire OT time for work and 0 hours for leisure, she will earn a maximum of OM0 level of total money income. The slope of the straight line joining the points M0 and T shows the wage rate, that is, W is equal to OM0 by OT. Now we draw the indifference curve I0, which is tangent to the OM0 line at point A. Assume that initial wage rate is W0, at which the individual enjoys OL0 hours of leisure, and put L0 T hours of work effort. Suppose that wage rate increases to W1 and there by pivot line OM0 to OM1. The individual will move to the higher indifference curve I1, which is tangent to the new income line M1T at A dash. When money income increases due to increase in wage rate, the decision for choosing more work effort or leisure depends upon income effect and substitution effect.
The substitution effect tells us that when wage rate increases, leisure will become relatively costlier as compared to earning money income by putting more work effort. On the other hand, income effect happens because increase in wage rate will raise the purchasing power of the individual, and with the higher income, she can buy many goods including leisure. Initially, when the wage rate increases, the substitution effects dominates the income effect and leads the individual to give more work effort.
In the figure, at point A dash, the individual earns OM1 level of income corresponding to OL1 hours of leisure. Up to the wage rate W2, the substitution effect continues to be higher than income effect, and the individual also continues to add more effort to earn more income. However, at very high wage rate, say W3, or income line M3T, the individual moves again to higher indifference curve I3, and equilibrium takes place at point A triple dash, and at this tangency point, the income effect starts to dampen the substitution effect. This results in a reduction of work effort from L2T hours to L3T hours, with the increase in money income to OM3 level. If we join all the tangency points A dash, A double dash, and A triple dash, we can obtain a curve denoted as LL, which mirrors the labor supply curve SL. From the wage rate W0 to W2,
Although both individual as well as market labor supply curve may have backward bending shape, but in general the market supply curve of labor appears as upward rising in the long run. This occurs due to the fact that with a rise in wage in the long run, young workers may be attracted or old workers may increase their effort in enhancing their skill for sustaining at their present job. Therefore, in our analysis, we consider upward sloping market supply curve shown as shown here.
We are now able to determine the equilibrium factor price in the perfectly competitive market by combining market demand curve and supply curve for variable factor labor. In the figure, wage rate is measured along the y-axis and units of labor measured along the x-axis. DL is the market demand for labor and market supply of labor is denoted by SL. The intersection of both is at point E star with the equilibrium.
Let us recapitulate the findings of Module 1, Paper 5. What we have stressed on in this particular module is that in a competitive factor market, the demand for variable factor like labor is given by the value of marginal revenue product curve, which is the firm's output price times the marginal product of labor, given the assumption that there will exist only one variable factor. In case of single variable factor, the firm will hire labor in the competitive market at the wage rate equals to value of marginal product of labor. When there are more than one variable factor, say for instance capital used up in production, the value of marginal product will no longer be the demand curve for labor. In response to the changes in wage rate, the VMP of labor will be shifted due to the fact that output effect and profit maximizing effect dominates the substitution effect. For different wage rates, we'll get different equilibrium points on different VMPL curves. Adding all the equilibrium points will obtain the demand curve for labor. For different wage rates, we'll get different equilibrium points on different VMPL curves. Adding all the equilibrium points will obtain the demand curve for labor. The market demand for labor is not the simple horizontal sum of the demand of all the firms in the market, as in the determination of market demand, one should note that change in factor prices can change the market price of the product. The individual supply of a variable factor such as labor is not necessary to be upward rising. A backward bending labor supply curve arises when income effect dominates substitution effect at higher wage rates. The equilibrium factor price such as wage rate is determined through the interaction between market demand and supply of labor.